Hello and welcome to the Bhagavatam. Today, I want to ask you, what is the difference between repentance and compassion? Because one thing I do know for sure, for all humans, is that we do stupid things. I'm sure you'll agree. We all mess up. We all make mistakes. We all do things that we regret later on. Alexander Pope wrote, "To err is human, to forgive divine." To err is human, to forgive divine. So what do we do when we make mistakes? Depending on the transgression, we may punish our kids or students. We may stop talking with friends or break up with lovers. Worst of all, when we are the wrongdoer, we tend to be hard on ourselves, calling ourselves names like stupid, idiot, etc. Don't tell me that you haven't done that. Most people do. And it's one of the diseases we all suffer from, all of us. We think we're protecting ourselves from others and correcting ourselves so that we might not make the same mistakes. But the truth is that the more we punish ourselves and others, the harder we are with each other, the more we get locked into a particular identity. So for example, if you think of yourself as stupid, well, that becomes an identity, and you end up doing stupid things, and because your identity dictates your actions. And so we end up repeating the same mistakes. However, when we recognize our own fallibility, when we accept how flawed we are, and we cultivate humility, instead of trying to be perfect, instead of being arrogant, then we can realize that we're all in the same boat. Our flaws and our foibles do not make us terrible people, but rather are essential traits that help us develop the sacred qualities of compassion and forgiveness. Which are far more effective in reforming us than anger and punishment. So let me say that again. Our flaws and our foibles do not make us terrible people, but rather are essential traits that help us develop the sacred qualities of compassion and forgiveness, which are far more effective in reforming us than anger and punishment. Religious believers see repentance as confessing our sins and feeling guilty for them. They are told that only if they repent can they enter into the kingdom of God. There is a partial truth here and a partial flaw. You see, shame and guilt are functionally designed to protect us against harming those who are dear to us and to make us behave better in the future. On one hand, people with psychopathy may never feel shame or guilt. But on the other extreme, children who are made to feel a lot of guilt and shame while growing up are likely to continue that pattern as an adult, meaning that they will start inducing shame and guilt upon themselves and upon others, and they will continue repeating many of the same mistakes. What then should we do to deal with our erroneous ways? The time-tested antidote has been empathy, compassion, and forgiveness. And they really work together, because you can't just have forgiveness. There has to be empathy. And along with empathy, there needs to be compassion. And combine that then with forgiveness. So one would assume, therefore, that if this is so, then God too must have empathy, compassion, and forgiveness. But if that is true, then how could he send people to hell to suffer forever? Such teachings which say this, that God sends people to suffer in hell forever, actually turn God into an evil, heartless monster. The truth is that God is unlimitedly compassionate and forgiving. He gives us endless opportunities to realize our mistaken ways, to rectify our thoughts and actions, and ultimately align ourselves with the path of Dharma, our divine godly nature, and come back to him. So, in the last few episodes, we've been talking about Indra. And we've been talking about how he did some crazy stuff with Krishna, right? He challenged Krishna's authority. And for those of you that are new, maybe I should just show you a few pictures, get you kind of acquainted about who we're talking about here. That is Krishna, playing his flute and with his favorite creatures, the cows. And this here is Indra, also known as Zeus in some cultures. And here's a little bit more. In other cultures, in Mesoamerican cultures, known as Olmec. In any case, we come to Indra, and Indra challenged Krishna's authority by sending huge amounts of rain. I'm just giving you the background of what we've been talking about till now. And at that time, Krishna lifted up Govardhan Hill, a huge hill. It's about 14 kilometers around even at present. 14 kilometers might be not quite 10 miles, but well, approximately. He lifted it up on his left hand pinky finger. And here you see everyone else is trying to kind of help him with their sticks, as if they can lift up a hill with sticks. So the question then is, how and why did Krishna lift up this hill? And what was the point of it? Now, if you consider Krishna to be an ordinary human being, well, then that's impossible. And this is just a myth, and this is just some kind of story. And it's just, something just to placate us in some way. But if you understand the basic premise that Krishna is the supreme being, God, present on this earth, not just as the Son of God or the messenger of God, but as God himself present here, well, then what is impossible for him to do? Lifting a hill is nothing. He could lift an entire planet. Lifting a planet is nothing. He could lift an entire universe. None of that would be difficult for him to do. So keeping that in mind, we have these wonderful pastimes where he shows us who he is, but at the same time how lovable and adorable he is. He shows us how his interest is not in us forming some great, religion or going into some big prayer or making some huge show, but rather it is with our heart. And so he shows us through all his loved ones in Vrindavan and their Leela, in their pastimes, what that love looks like. Many religions talk about love of God, but when it comes down to saying, well, what does God look like? And what does God do? And how do I fall in love with someone who I know nothing about? Yeah, they don't have an answer for that. But here in the Vedas, you have these kind of answers. So after Krishna had lifted Govardhan Hill and protected the inhabitants of his village of Braj or Vrindavan from the terrible rainfall sent by Indra, Indra realized his mistake. Krishna had been lifting Govardhan Hill on his little finger, left-hand finger, for 7 days and nights. Yes, and had the entire village come underneath it as if it was a giant umbrella. So when Indra, the demigod in charge of rain, now keep in mind, in the Vedic culture, in Hinduism as it's commonly called, there aren't many gods. There is one god, but there are many demigods known as devas. The devas are in charge of various aspects of the administration of the universe, of the elements, of different other aspects. So this idea that God does everything is like quite insane, because if he's going to be managing every person and everything and all the affairs of the state, then it's like a one-man show, and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. Even the CEO of a company wouldn't do that. They wouldn't try to do a one-man show for a large corporation. Imagine some large corporation, Apple or Microsoft or whatever, try one person, the CEO running the entire show. It's like, why would you want to do that? Not unless you want to go crazy or unless you want your corporation to fail. So everything is delegated out. And this is where Indra, being in charge of the heavenly planets, being in charge of rain, when he sees this little boy Krishna doing all these miraculous things, he's like, who the hell does he think he is? And then on top of that, he's saying, don't worship Indra. Like, come on, this is too much. This is too far. So that's when he starts his attack on Krishna by sending all kinds of rainfall to his village, which would have drowned all the villagers. So who is this Krishna then? Indra is just starting to understand, because now that he's seen his power, his ability, then he's feeling very, very a tremendous remorse. But who is this Krishna? In the Brahma Samhita, which is written by Brahma, Brahma is known in the Vedas to be the one who creates, who's delegated with and given the job of creating the universe. Brahma says, Chintamani prakara sadmasu kalpa vrikshak lakshabriteshu surabhira bipalayantam Lakshmi sahasra shatasam brahma sevyamanam Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the original, who is tending the cows, yielding all desire. So the cows in the spiritual world are known as surabhi cows. Normal cows will give you milk when they are milked, but the kamadhenu or the surabhi cows of Goloka, the spiritual world, they pour forth oceans of milk in the shape of fountains of love, showering transcendental bliss that does away with the hunger and thirst of all pure lovers of God. And that spiritual world is written here in the Bhagavatam, or rather in the Brahma Samhita, as being built of spiritual gems, chintamani. What is these spiritual gems? It says, just as the material world, through the arrangement of Maya, the external energy of God, through this energy, this mundane universe is built, made of 5 material elements. So also the spiritual world is made of chit potency. That is, instead of being built with Maya, it is built with conscious energy, chit. And that spiritual world is made of transcendental gems that are far rarer and more agreeable than the philosopher's stone. The philosopher's stone was also known as the touchstone. You touched anything with it, it became gold. Well, the spiritual world, one who touches it becomes infused with love of God. And it's surrounded by millions of purpose trees. I'm not sure what the term purpose trees means, but it's also called kalpa vriksha. That means that it not only yields fruits of piety and wealth and so on, but more importantly, the trees in the abode of Krishna bestow innumerable fruits in the shape of checkered divine love, with the varieties of divine love, always served with reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of gopis. So Krishna is like that. That is his abode. So now Indra, the demigod in charge of all the heavenly planets and of rain and all that, was very ashamed of having offended who he now understood was the Supreme Lord. And he approached him in a solitary place. Indra fell down, lay his helmet on the ground. That helmet, whose effulgence was as brilliant as the sun, he laid it at Krishna's lotus feet. So this was quite a moment. He had come here with Surabhi, the cows of the spiritual world. And along with them, he had come to give his respects to Krishna. So that's Indra with Krishna. Indra had now heard and seen the transcendental power of the omnipotent Krishna, and his false pride in being that, Indra thought himself to be the lord of the 3 worlds. The 3 worlds refers to the upper or heavenly planets, the lower or more hellish planets, and the middle world planets, which are the earth. So he has so much of false pride about being, the king, the master of all these 3 worlds. That pride had now been defeated. Holding his hands together in supplication, he addressed Krishna as follows. Indra said, "Your transcendental form, is a manifestation of Vishuddha Sattvam, transcendental goodness, and is undisturbed by change, shining with knowledge and devoid of passion and ignorance. In you does not exist the mighty flow of the modes of material nature, which is based on illusion and ignorance. So the form of Krishna, while embodying the ultimate beauty, is not only beautiful, but is also has very special qualities. And those qualities are that is a spiritual form. It is made of Sat Chit Ananda. Krishna is pure spirit. He does not come in a material body. His body and his soul are non-different. For us, our body is different from our soul. Our soul is of a spiritual nature, our body is of a material or physical nature. But Krishna, being pure spirit, is non-different from his body. There is absolutely no difference between him and the form that you see. By contrast, in this material world, we conditioned souls are all distinctly different from our bodies, whether those bodies be male, female, black, white, or whatever. All of us are eternal souls, different from our temporary and flimsy bodies. Whereas that is not the case with Krishna. Krishna says, I come in my original transcendental form, millennium after millennium. Yuga, yuga, idharasya. In the Brahma Samhita, it further says, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, and substantiality, Sat Chit Ananda, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha. He is the person possessing the beauty of blooming youth, meaning eternally youthful, not like us, where we get old and sick and then die. No, not like that. So Indra continues, how then could there exist in you the symptoms of an ignorant person such as greed, lust, anger, and envy? You see, Indra was challenging Krishna. He wanted to know, who is this person? And you know a person by their qualities, their gunas. If those gunas, those qualities are in the mode of goodness, you will find that that person is peaceful and is detached and is not affected by worldly events. If that person is in the mode of passion, then they will be very busy trying to work and do things and make money and struggle, try to prove their worth and try to show the world what a great person they are. That's in the mode of passion. And in the mode of goodness, one just doesn't care. You're depressed, you're not unhappy, and you're not interested in anything. So Indra is saying, you are not affected, Krishna, you are not affected by greed, by lust, by anger and envy, which are produced by one's previous involvement in material existence and which cause one to become further entangled in material existence. You see this? Greed causes you to become further involved. Lust or desire, if you want to use the broader word, also causes you to stay entangled in material existence. Anger and envy also do the same thing. If you're envious of someone, then you want what they have. So now your desire is a flame. And if you don't get what you want, then you become angry. So all of these keep you stuck in the material world. So Indra says here, you, Krishna, are the father and the spiritual master of this entire universe and also its supreme controller. The Bhagavad Gita in chapter 14, text number 4 says the same thing. Sarva yoneshu kaunteya murtaya sambhavantiya. What does this mean? Then he goes on. Tasam brahma mahad yonir aham bija pradha pitaha. It should be understood that all species of life are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I, that is Krishna, am the seed-giving father. I am aham bija pradha pita. I am the seed-giving father. Many people say, oh, well, Father God, and they think that their God is the only God. Well, Krishna is declaring 3,000 years before the Abrahamic religions came into play, that he is the original seed-giving father to all material nature, and that gives rise to all that we see around us. Indra says, "You are insurmountable time, imposing punishment upon the sinful for their own benefit. Indeed, in your various incarnations selected by your own free will, you act decisively to remove the false pride of those who presume themselves masters of this world." Very important thing to contemplate here. You act decisively to remove the false pride of those who assume themselves masters of this world. We all think that we are the master of all we survey, of our home, of our body, of our life, of our destiny. But are we? What are you the master of? Everything you have right now, in terms of its energy, existed before even you were born and will continue to remain. Matter can never be created or destroyed, but it will change hands. Today it is with you, tomorrow it will be with someone else. Then it'll go to the garbage dump, but it will never be yours. There is nothing in this world that you will be able to hold on to forever. Nothing. Not even your body. All of it will be taken from you. All of it. What will remain is you. You will remain. That is the only thing you have, is you. Nothing else. Not this body, not this mind. None of that. Not your possessions, not your family, not your friends. None of it. What will remain is you. You will have come into this world, and you who will leave this world. And in the meantime, and in the process, there are so many things you're doing, and those things are accruing karma. And that karma is keeping you bound to this world. So if you want to get free of karma, then it's time to start looking at what is the process of doing that. If I want to become free of this cycle of birth and death, if I want to become free from the cycle of karma, if I want to become free from suffering, then what is the process? And Krishna gives the process. He says, Sarva dharman parityajam ekam sharanam praja. Just give up all your dharma, give up all your duties, all your responsibilities, everything, and surrender unto me first. Doesn't mean you can't do those things, but first surrender to him. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo. I will free you from all your sinful reactions and karma. Moksha ishyami ma shuchaha. And I promise you that I will liberate you from this world, from all suffering. Now, the beauty of his promise is that you don't have to wait till you get to some heaven in the future, after you die. Not at all. You can experience that freedom from suffering here and now. You will experience it by no longer being attached to your mind, your thoughts, your possessions. You will break that connection. And as you break that connection, you will find yourself free and liberated here and now. The Bhagavad Gita says, Kala asmi lokakshya krit. Time I am destroyer of the worlds, and I have come to engage all people. This statement was also picked up by Oppenheimer, by the way, when they blasted the nuclear bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And he quoted this verse from the Bhagavad Gita. No, Krishna is not talking about destroying the world with nuclear bombs. That is not his intent here. And nor is he condoning such actions. What he is saying is that he is time. Kala asmi. I am time. Time destroys everything. God doesn't destroy everything, and nor does he condone us destroying everything. Time destroys everything. In time, everything is vanquished. Everyone is vanquished. Nobody can be successful over time. Time takes away everything. Time steals our life away from us. Time steals our loved ones away from us. Time steals our possessions away from us. And that time, Kala, that is ultimately God. Why is he doing this, you may ask? Why would he take away everything from me? Because the truth is that nothing was ever yours. You didn't make any of it. You didn't make this body. You didn't make this mind. You didn't make this world. You didn't make the planet. You didn't make the sun, the stars, the moon. None of it. So how do you claim possession over it? The earth that your house is built on, you didn't make that earth. That earth was already made. Somebody came and put their thing, a stamp on it and said, this is mine. And now I can sell it to you, and you bought it from that person. But the person who sold it to you never owned it in the first place. If you go back to the original person who tried to, claim that land as theirs. My point here is that time is such a powerful force, and we all need to reckon with it. It makes us older. It ultimately takes away our intelligence. We see even the President of the United States struggling with age. Time weakens us. It takes away our faculties. It takes away our powers. It takes away everything. And so it's really important for us to understand that we are very fragile. We are very flawed. And therefore now when Indra continues in his prayers, he says like this. He says, even fools like me, Indra, this is the heavenly king, is saying, even fools like me, who proudly think themselves universal lords, quickly give up their conceit and directly take to the path of the spiritually progressive when they see you are fearless even in the face of time. Thus you punish the mischievous only to instruct them. Engrossed in pride over my ruling power, ignorant of your majesty, I offended you. O Supreme Lord, may you forgive me. My intelligence was bewildered, and let my consciousness never again be so impure. You descend into this world, O transcendent being, to destroy the warlords who burden the earth and create many terrible disturbances. You simultaneously act for the welfare of those who faithfully serve your lotus feet. In the Bhagavad Gita, the same thing is said. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. That yuga after yuga, age after age, time after time, God comes into this world in order to deliver those who are spiritually minded, who are devoted to Him, and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to reestablish the principles of Dharma. Dharma is not quite religion, but I guess loosely you can call it that. But Dharma is much deeper, much deeper. But the idea is to establish the ways of God, godly ways, to bring those principles into, because see, religion can often be manipulated by humans, but Dharma cannot be manipulated. Dharma cannot be altered. Dharma is the very nature of a thing. And just like water is wet, that's the Dharma of water. Fire is hot, burns, that's the Dharma of fire. So the Dharma of the human being is to seek. What does he seek? Happiness, peace, love. What is that? All of that are the qualities of the soul. So that which we seek is that which we are. And that which we are is that which God is, because we are a tiny part of Him. So ultimately we are seeking God. And when we realize that, our suffering ends. As we devote ourselves and we become committed to that path, suffering to that degree goes away. Then he goes on, Namastubhyam Bhagavate. So important. I thought I will give you the original Sanskrit because he recognizes that Krishna is Bhagavan, the Supreme Being, the Supreme Godhead, Bhagavan. He says, Namastubhyam, Namaste, Bhagavate, the Supreme Being, Bhagavan. Purushasya Mahatmane, you are that greatest of all beings, Mahatmane. Vasudevaya Krishnaya Sattvatam Pataye Namaha. Obeisance is unto you, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, the great soul who are all-pervading. All-pervading means who's present in every atom in the creation and who resides in the heart of all. My obeisance is unto you, Krishna, O chief of the Yadu dynasty. Unto him who assumes transcendental bodies. What is a transcendental body? Vishuddha Deha. That means that it is not material. This is a key piece that people don't get. There are many people who know about Krishna, but they don't understand that his body is Vishuddha Deha. Vishuddha means it is, if you think of pure, something purified, it is the purest of the pure, meaning it is transcendental. It is not of this world. That's why very often he's shown, not very often, in all the artistic works, he's shown as having a blue-colored body. Well, what is this blue-colored body? A lot of people ask, why does he have a blue body? Well, that's to denote the idea that he has a spiritual form, that his form is non-material. It is not made of the substance of which our bodies are made. So that is the essential understanding. Indra continues, my dear Bhagavan, when my sacrifice was disrupted, so in other words, Krishna had told all the villagers not to worship Indra. So he says, my dear Bhagavan, when my sacrifice was disrupted, I became fiercely angry because of false pride. Thus I tried to destroy your cowherd community with severe rain and wind. By the way, does that ever happen to you? When someone, let's say, disrespects you, when someone doesn't do what you want them to do, when someone doesn't follow your instruction, doesn't act the way you think they should act, do you get upset? Do you get angry? And if you do, please recognize what Indra is saying. I became fiercely angry because of false pride. So that is our ahankar, means false pride. What is false pride? I think I'm the controller. I think I'm the ruler. I think I'm the boss. I think people should do things my way. And even if you aren't the controller, many of us will get onto a freeway or a road and think that people should follow the rules according to what we think, or maybe even what the city thinks. But people do what they do. You can't control them. You can't control your children. You can't control your spouse. You can't control even the people who work for you or under you. You can't. You can't really control anything or anyone. You can't even control your eyes and say, hey, stay open for the next 5 minutes. Can't. Stop your heart. Can't. Stop your breathing. Can't. You can do it for a short while, for a few moments, but that's about it. How much control do you have? And yet we try to control everything and everyone. Tell me if that's not true. And by the way, any of you who have questions, please write them down in the comments. I would love to discuss your thoughts, even observations. It doesn't have to be a question, it can be an observation. And I'd love to discuss your observations, your thoughts, your questions, your opinions as soon as I'm finished with the reading of the Bhagavatam. So please feel free to write down in the comments wherever you are. And there's folks out here from YouTube, from Instagram, from Zoom, wherever you are, feel free. Okay? Please know that I will take up all your questions, and I love having your questions. So Indra is saying, my dear Bhagavan, when my sacrifice was disrupted, I became fiercely angry because of false pride. Thus I tried to destroy your cowherd community with severe rain and wind. You have shown mercy to me by shattering my false pride and defeating my attempt to punish the residents of Vrindavan. To you, the Supreme Lord, the word used here is Ishwaram. Ishvara means the Supreme Lord, the spiritual master and the Supreme Soul, Atmanam. I now come for shelter. Tvam aham sharanam gataha. Indra is saying, Tvam, you, aham, I, sharanam, I surrender unto you. Why is surrender important? Why is surrender important? What is surrender? It's a very powerful and important question. Surrender is not about giving up. Surrender is about releasing yourself, is about freedom. Freedom from what? As you notice here, in the case of Indra, freedom from your false pride, from your ahankar, freedom from who you think you are, freedom from how you think people should behave or what they should do, Surrender is surrender from I, me, and mine. Surrender means I am nothing. I am just a tiny speck in the universe. I am part of a divine source, a divine being who has created me and placed me here. And when I surrender, I come into alignment with that supreme being. See, my finger is part of my body. If it wants to do its own thing, then this finger can be like, moving all over the place, but it's not going to be useful to this body, and I'm going to have to somehow stop it and shut it down, right? But if it surrenders, as in it works in alignment with the whole, then it becomes very useful. Then the whole, that is this being, this organism, can use that finger for its purpose. In much the same way, we are part of God. And when we go into a place of surrender, we come into alignment with God. And when we are in alignment with God, we now begin to serve God instead of trying to be served. It's just like my finger, it cannot eat the food directly. It must take the food and place it in the mouth. And then by having served the whole, it will also be served. Similarly, when we serve God, then we too are served. When we please God, then we too are pleased. But if we try to please ourselves separately from God, then that will never work. We will never be happy. And the proof is in the pudding. We aren't happy. We aren't fulfilled. Why? No matter how much we have, no matter what we've achieved, we're still not fulfilled. It's never enough. And the reason for that is that we are not serving the whole. We are part, we are anksha. That is what is said in Sanskrit. We are a tiny part of the divine. And it is only when we please the divine, when we honor and serve the divine, or God, that we then become fulfilled and happy. Even a person who's working for an organization has to serve the company. If you're working for the government, you have to serve the nation. Everyone serves someone. The ultimate master of all is God. And if you want the ultimate result of living this life, then it is by serving God. So thus glorified by Indra, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, smiled and then spoke to him as follows in a voice resonant like the clouds. Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Indra, it was out of mercy that I stopped the sacrifice meant for you. You were greatly intoxicated by your opulence as King of Heaven, and I wanted you to always remember me. A man blinded by intoxication with his power and opulence cannot see me nearby. If I desire his real welfare, I drag him down from his materially fortunate position. If I desire his real welfare, I drag him down from his materially fortunate position. Indra, you may go now. Execute my order and remain in your appointed position as King of Heaven, but be sober, without false pride." At this point, Mother Surabhi, along with her progeny, the cows, offered her obeisances to Krishna, and respectfully requesting his attention, the gentle lady, meaning Surabhi the cow, addressed the Supreme Lord who was present before her as a cowherd boy. I think I'd like to take you back a little to some of the pictures I have of Surabhi and just kind of bring those up again. Some of you on Instagram might not be able to see the entire picture. I'm sorry for that. It does get cropped off. And then later on, there are pictures you'll see of where Surabhi is showering Krishna. Actually, that's the elephant of Indra. And before that is Surabhi showering Krishna. So Mother Surabhi is saying, Surabhiruvacha, Krishna Krishna Mahayogin. O Krishna, Krishna, master of all mystics, the greatest of all yogis. Vishvatmanam, Vishvatman, O soul of the universe. Vishvasambhava, O origin of the universe. Bhavata lokanathena, you are the master of the world. Sanathavayam achyuta, by your grace, O infallible Lord, we have you as our master. You are our worshipable deity. Therefore, O Lord of the universe, for the benefit of the cows, the priests, the Brahmins, the Devas, the demigods, and all other saintly persons, please, you become our Indra, our King of Heaven. As ordered by Brahma, we shall perform your bathing ceremony to coronate you, Krishna, as our Indra. O soul of the universe, you descend to this world to relieve the burden of the earth. Having thus appealed to Krishna, Mother Surabhi performed his bathing ceremony with her own milk, and Indra, ordered by Aditi and other mothers of the demigods, anointed him with heavenly Ganga water from the trunk of Indra's elephant carrier, Airavat. Thus, in the company of the Devas and other demigods and great sages, Indra coronated Krishna and gave him the name Govinda. Govinda is one of the very special and precious names of Krishna. It means one who gives pleasure to the cows. It means also one who gives pleasure to the senses. And it's a very important thing to understand, because we all want to pleasure our senses. We eat nice food to pleasure our senses. We have nice soft garments and fabrics because that pleasures our sense of touch. We want to go to beautiful places because that pleasures our senses. We want to see beautiful flowers and trees and nature and beautiful things. Go to art galleries and go to museums. We want to see beauty everywhere. With all our senses, we want to smell beautiful flowers. We want to inhale and listen fragrances. We want to listen to lovely music. With all our senses, we seek to enjoy. But the one who gives pleasure to our senses is Govinda. The residents of the heavenly planets sang his glories, which purify the entire world, and the wives of the demigods, filled with joy, danced together in Krishna's honor. They scattered wonderful showers of flowers all around him, and all three worlds felt supreme satisfaction, and the cows drenched the surface of the earth with their milk. Rivers flowed with various kinds of tasty liquids, trees exuded honey, edible plants came to maturity without cultivation, and hills gave forth jewels formerly hidden in their interiors. Upon the ceremonial bathing of Krishna, all living entities, even those cruel by nature, became entirely free of enmity. It's an interesting phenomenon when you come across someone who is highly evolved. All your anger, lust, greed, envy go away. You become purified just by the presence of a highly evolved being, what to say of God himself. After he had ceremoniously bathed Govinda, who is the master of the cows and the cowherd community, King Indra took Krishna's permission and, surrounded by the Devas, the demigods and other higher beings, returned to his heavenly abode. Now we have a short little story after this. The next chapter goes into, after fasting on Ekadashi day and worshipping Janardhan, Krishna's father, Nanda, entered the water of the Kalindi river on the Dwadasi to take his bath. So the problem here is that he entered the water to bathe at an inauspicious time before the first dawn light. That is when you break the Ekadashi fast. I won't go into that and try to explain it right now to anyone, but just bear with us. Now, because Krishna's father Nanda had entered the water in the dark of night, disregarding that the time was inauspicious, an Asura, a demonic servant of Varun seized him and brought him to his master. So who is Varun? We'll have to now understand that. There are many devas, as you've been hearing in previous episodes, and Varun is in charge of the water. Just like Zeus, you have Varun. So earlier we had compared Zeus and, sorry, I made a mistake here. Earlier we had talked about Zeus and Indra and how they are similar. Zeus is the king of the Olympian gods in Greek mythology, and he shares similarities with Indra in the Vedas. Both wield lightning and thunder weapons. Zeus is thunderbolt and Indra's Vajra. Vajra is what Indra's weapon is. And then you have the similarities between Poseidon and Varun. And the question is, why are these gods so similar? See, Poseidon is known to be the god of the sea in Greek mythology, and he shares similarities with Varun. the Vedic deity of oceans and water. Both are depicted with a trident and are guardians of water bodies and share authority over the natural elements. Similarities also exist between Athena and Saraswati, Hades and Yama, Apollo and Surya, Artemis and Durga. So I'm going to do a separate video sometime about this whole similarity. But the fact of the matter is that the Vedic culture actually spread from India all across the Middle East, and from the Middle East all the way into Europe. And so you'll find that the gods of the Europeans, the original gods, that is to say in Greece and Rome, and even in the Scandinavian islands, Sweden, Norway, etc., you'll find their gods are also very similar to Vedic gods. They're all coming from the same root. Yes, names changed. Yes, some of the details changed over time, but their characteristics and even down to their weapons and their functions all remain the same. So there's a lot to be learned about that, and as I said, I'll do that in a separate video sometime. Do watch out on my YouTube channel. I'll be launching lots of other things as well. When the cowherd men couldn't find Nanda, that is Krishna's father, they loudly called out to Krishna and Balaram. Balaram's Krishna's brother. Krishna heard their cries and understood that his father had been captured by Varun. Varun is just to go back now, is the Deva, the demigod in charge of the oceans. Therefore, the Almighty Lord Krishna, who makes his devotees fearless, went personally to the court of Varun Dev. Seeing the Supreme Lord, Rishikesh, the controller of the senses, had arrived at his door. Now we're talking about underwater, The demigod Varun worshipped him with elaborate offerings. Varun was in a state of great jubilation upon seeing Krishna, and he spoke as follows. Before we go there, before we read what Varun was saying, first I'd like to just show you a few pictures. Here is Varun, there is Krishna, a young boy. And he's come to rescue his father. And we need to know this, that unlike the earlier narratives that we had, where Brahma tried to test Krishna, and where Indra tried to test Krishna, and all of them doubted his power, Varun in this case fully accepts Krishna, does not have a problem. His problem is that one of his servants stole Krishna's father and brought him there. In other words, Krishna's father would possibly have drowned or died in real terms, but Varun had taken care of him. So Varun Dev worshipped Krishna with elaborate offerings. Varun was in a state of great jubilation upon seeing Krishna and spoke as follows. Now my body has fulfilled its function. Indeed, now the goal of my life is achieved. Those who have accepted your lotus feet can transcend the path of material existence. We can all learn this from Varun. That when you have the Supreme Being in front of you, there is nothing more you need to worry about. There is no fear you need to have, not even of death. And then the goal of your life has been achieved. Please know, in one act, the goal of your life is achieved. Whereas you may have many goals right now, and you may or may not achieve them. But by accepting Krishna as the Supreme Being, you have achieved the goal of human life, which is to understand who is God, who am I, and what is our relationship. Those who accept your lotus feet, he says, can transcend the path of material existence. What does it mean to transcend the path of material existence? It means that the influence of the world will be lessened and you will no longer be affected as much by it. The stuff will happen in your life. Things will go on. Good and bad things will happen. But when you become equipoised, that is equal to both, not attached to either the good or the bad, when you recognize that all of this is part of being here, it's part of the pastimes, our flaws, our imperfections, the nature of this world, the sufferings caused to us by nature, the sufferings caused to us by other beings, the sufferings caused by our body and mind, are all part of this journey. And you no longer resist that, and you no longer try to battle that, And you no longer try to overcome that. Because if you look at our modern societies, all we're trying to do is overcome the sufferings of this world. It's hot, I need air conditioning. I'm hungry, I need food. This person said something nasty to me, I no longer want to talk to them. I'll either accept you if you're nice to me, or I'll reject you if you're bad to me. And this is how we go on and on and on. We're sick, we try to get well. We go to the hospital, we go to the doctor. We need to get from one place to another. We seek a car, an airplane, or something. And thereby we try to overcome the challenges of this world. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. I'm saying that you should not be dependent on these things. Today you have airplanes and cars and air conditioners and food and everything else. Tomorrow you may not. We don't know how the world kind of tumbles and how the cookie crumbles and whatever happens out here. Whether it's up or down, whether it's good or bad, whether the markets are, shooting up or shooting down, whatever is happening, we need to stay constantly devoted to that Supreme Being or God. And when we do that, we develop within ourselves a resilience, an ability to tackle any and all situations and be equipoised through it all. That is important. So that's what it means to transcend the path of material existence. Because as you transcend it here, then you become ready to get out of here. You don't get out of here just by still being a complete moron and an idiot and behaving badly with everything and everyone, and then think you're going to get out of here and go to heaven. My goodness, you'll bring your hell into heaven then and create, chaos over there. It's like most people think, I'm going to go to heaven. I don't know what heaven you're going to, my friend. But definitely if you went to heaven, we would not need to go there because it's going to become hell. If you go there with all your envy and your greed and your hate and your whatever sense of prejudices and racism and this and that you've got going on, we wouldn't want to be there. So, transcending the path of material existence is very important. My obeisance is unto you, Varun is saying, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Soul, within whom there is no trace of the illusory energy of Maya, which orchestrates the creation of this world. Your father who is sitting here was brought to me by a foolish, ignorant servant of mine who did not understand his proper duty. Therefore, please forgive us. O Krishna, O seer of everything, please give your mercy even to me. O Govinda, you are most affectionate to your father. Please take him home. Satisfied by Varun, Sri Krishna, the Supreme Godhead, Lord of Lords, took his father and returned home, where his relatives were overjoyed to see them. King Nanda had been astonished to see for the first time the great opulence of Varun, the ruler of the oceans, and also to see how Varun and his servants had offered such humble respect to Krishna. Nanda described all this to his fellow cowherd men. The cowherd men considered that Krishna must be the Supreme Lord, and their minds were filled with eagerness. They thought, will the Supreme Lord bestow upon us his transcendental abode? Meaning, will he bless us by taking us with him to the spiritual world? Because he sees everything, Krishna automatically understood what the cowherd men were conjecturing, and wanting to show them his compassion and fulfill their desires, he thought as follows. People in this world are wandering about among higher and lower destinations, meaning sometimes you're rich, sometimes you're poor, sometimes you're on a heavenly planet, sometimes you're on a hellish planet. So people in this world are wandering among higher and lower destinations which they achieve through their activities, through their karma, performed according to their desires and without full knowledge. Thus people do not know their real destination. Considering the situation, the all-merciful Krishna revealed to the cowherd men his abode, which is beyond material darkness. So this is a vision that he is showing them of the spiritual world. Krishna revealed the Brahma Jyoti, the light, the spiritual effulgence, which is unlimited, conscious and eternal. So he's describing now the spiritual world, which is self-illuminated. It is not that it requires a sun or a moon. It is self-illuminated, meaning every part of it is full of light. And it is not only that, it is unlimited and it is conscious. Everything there is conscious and everything there is eternal. It is not made of material substance. It is not made of matter, but rather is from conscious energy. Sages see that spiritual existence when they are in trance, when their consciousness is free of the influence of material nature. So great sages in their trance, in their meditation, in their state of enlightenment, they get to see this spiritual world. However, the cowherd men were brought by Krishna to that place, Brahma Hrida, and submerged in its water. He submerged them in the awareness of the impersonal Brahman, that is to say, the sense of oneness with everything, and then lifted them up. From that vantage point, they saw the planet of the absolute truth. Now, the purport, it is explained more clearly. The evolution of consciousness may be briefly summarized as follows. In ordinary consciousness, we perceive and are attracted by the variety of material things. Rising to the first stage of spiritual consciousness, we transcend material variety and focus instead on the undifferentiated one, that is called Brahman, which lies behind and gives existence to the many. Okay, let me explain this. You've heard that everything is made of energy. That energy is the building blocks of this entire universe. But what is that energy? It's not enough to just say it's energy, but what is it? It's not heat energy, it's not light energy, it's not just atoms and protons and quarks and all of that. It is much more than that. The waves that they talk about, which are actually the building blocks of the universe, those waves are energy patterns. That energy might not be visible to electron microscopes. It might not be visible through all their machinery, but it is visible and accessible by each and every one of us. You can access it. How? When you are in nature, any part of what is created by God, and you are fully, deeply present with that, and your mind doesn't wander, and your mind is quiet, you can experience the energy of the universe. Whether that is in nature, whether that is in something you're eating, whether that is anywhere. You can experience that energy just by being deeply present. Your focus, your dhyan, and your presence unlocks that energy, and you feel it, and you begin to feel happy for no reason. You feel uplifted. You feel a state of love within you for all things and all beings. There is no envy, there is no anger, there is no hate, there is no discrimination. You begin to feel a sense of connection with everything and everyone. We have that ability. And if you want to stay in that state, well, that takes much deeper practice. But you can be there all the time. In any case, the Brijvasis, the residents of Vrindavan, got a taste of that. They got to experience that undifferentiated one, that state of oneness with everything, which lies behind and gives existence to the many. So if that very energy then gives rise to the many different species, the many different places, the many different hills and mountains and rivers and all of that, that's what rises from that energy. And then finally they rose beyond that to the place where they find that the absolute spiritual one contains its own eternal varieties. In other words, within the oneness they found the variegatedness, the variety that is there in the spiritual world. It's not all one. That's just the beginning. Then you go deeper and you go further beyond the light in the spiritual world, and then you find within that all the planets of the spiritual world in which God resides and all his different avatars and all the different incarnations. Then it says in the purport, in fact, since the world is a mere shadow of eternal existence, we would expect to find spiritual variety within the one. And indeed, we do find it in the sacred text of Srimad Bhagavatam. King Nanda and all the other cowherd men felt great happiness when they saw that transcendental abode. They were especially amazed to see Krishna himself there, surrounded by the personified Vedas who were offering him prayers. All right, I hope you've been listening and have got questions. I'd love to hear what you've Your thoughts, your observations, your questions, your doubts, anything that you've got in mind. If you're listening to this later on, please write them in the comments and I'll be happy to answer from there as well. But if you're here live, which is fantastic, I'd love to see what you've got to say. All right, I have a great point made by Swati here. Would love a discourse on Vedic versus Western mythology. How exciting. Yes, Swati, I'll definitely put that together. I've got that on my mind. I've been wanting to do it for a long time. So thank you for encouraging me. I would love to do that. But there is a lot that we can learn from each other. And this is where, you see, when with the advent of the Abrahamic religions, they squashed everything, calling it all mythology. The truth is, all of this coexists side by side. It's not that one is better than another. All of these, when you look at them as a whole, it starts to make sense. Yes, there are religions that talk about a monotheistic idea of God. And there are religions that talk about a polytheistic idea of God. Are these mutually exclusive? No. In fact, if you would consider this, the Vedas, the Vedic literature, Sanatana Dharma as it is called, is both, it has got many different dimensions. On one hand, it is pantheistic. That is to say, it believes that God is there in nature. Nature is God. Then it goes further. This is from the Rig Veda. Then it goes further. And then it goes into, it is polytheistic, that there are many gods. Those are the devas, demigods. Then it goes beyond that. And even if you're atheistic, such as in Buddhism, such as in the Advaita Vedanta, they tend to be quite atheistic. Even then you are part of Sanatana Dharma. And then it takes you to the final stage, which is monotheistic. And that's where Krishna comes in talking about the Bhagavad Gita and showing you about his life. But all of these exist simultaneously. They're not separate from each other. And this is the part most people don't get. It's not an either or. It's simultaneously all of them together form a comprehensive path, allowing for each person to be exactly where they're at, to follow what is right for them. If you are not interested in believing in God, great, you're still on the path. If you are interested in believing in God, but only want to believe in many gods so that you can get your material desires fulfilled, fine, you're still on the path. If you believe that God is only in nature, you're still in the path. And if you believe that God is the supreme being, then too you are on the path. But there are many layers and levels, and all of that needs to be considered. What do you ultimately want? Are you just seeking to enjoy the world? If so, for how long? Have you questioned what you're doing? Have you questioned your own effort? You're spending so much of your time, your energy, your life into what? Are you investing it? Because you only have a certain amount of time in this world. You only have a certain amount of energy, a certain amount of health, a certain amount of time when your mind is alert and you can do things. What are you investing it in? Krishna says, wherever and whatever your mind is fixed upon at the time of leaving this body, to that state you will go. So whatever you've been doing, whatever you've been investing your time and energy in this life, is going to become your level of consciousness. Your level of consciousness is going to determine what you're going to be thinking of at the time of death. If you've been attached to your possessions, your family, etc., well, that's what you're going to think about at the time of death. Whatever you're thinking about will determine what you go to in your next life. And you can keep doing this again and again for as many lifetimes as you want, infinite lifetimes if you choose. And at some point when you get it, and no, I've had enough. I want to find out the real meaning of life, the real purpose of life, what does real success mean? I've tried the other stuff. I've tried, playing by society's rules and trying to impress everybody and trying to make everyone think how great I am, and all of that I've tried, but it hasn't fulfilled me. I've tried to please everyone. I've tried to look good, but I'm feeling empty inside. There's this hollow space within me, and I don't know how to get rid of that. When you begin to understand this, this is the time when your consciousness starts to shift. This is the time where you start seeking something more. And with that seeking of something more, you land up here. This is the place. Because you might have gone through various religions and practices and different things till you come to the Bhagavat Dharma. The Bhagavat Dharma is where you begin to look at the Supreme Being. And you begin to try to understand who is this Supreme Being. And you begin to then devote yourself. And that's where your journey begins. Bhagavat Dharma. That is why this is called the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is actually considered the ripened fruit of all the Vedic wisdom. The Vedic wisdom is the accumulation of all the great rishis and saintly people for thousands of years, all of their wisdom compiled together. And now take that, and what is the ripened fruit of that tree of Vedic wisdom? That is this Bhagavatam. And this Bhagavatam now is bringing us to the ripened fruit of its, the greatest achievement within itself, and that is the devotion of Krishna, to understand who he is. And here we see the examples of all these different demigods, these devas. They too were confused. So if you and I are confused, that's not a surprise. If you and I have a little difficulty understanding this, it's no surprise. Because even the devas, the demigods, who are highly evolved beings, who'd been given great responsibilities in taking care of this universe, they too were perplexed. I mean, imagine a young kid, right? 5, 6 years old, and he's doing all kinds of incredible things that no one can ever have done before. With his bare hands, just killing off these demons who were coming to attack him. With his bare hands, he's lifting up a hill on his little pinky. How is he doing all this? It's not possible. 5, 6, 7 years old. 7 years, I think he was at that time. So it's really important that we understand who Krishna is and understand it from the Vedas, from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Anyways, thank you for being here. If there's anyone else who has a question, I'd be glad to check it out. And if not, I will see you back here at 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays. And if you're in India, then it'll be Wednesdays at 7:30 a.m. on Wednesdays, yes. Tuesdays if you're in the US. All right, thank you so much. Wish you a wonderful night. Hare Krishna.